Hi. Now that Chris has given us a refresher on some of the material we learned throughout the course, and Anna has talked about React, what it is, how it works, why different people use it, I'm going to tie it all together with callbacks in React. So the reason callback functions are important in React is because it allows you to be able to send information back up to the parent component from a child component. The way that this is accomplished is the parent passes a callback function to the child as a prop, which is then run at a later time. And so the tutorial that we followed actually has a pretty nice diagram of this, where the parent component passes props. Props is just a common theme throughout React of how you pass things down from a parent to a child. A prop can be a callback function though. So in this case, the parent's passing the prop, which is a callback function, to the child component. This callback function is then being run at a later time and its result is being re-rendered in the parent component. And that's what I'm going to walk through today. So that's kind of how the loop flow of information works. So for our example, it's really simple. We're going to have a basic app that has a state count, as in just a simple counter app, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. It has two child components, the plus button and the minus button. But in order to be able to change the overall state of the app, we're going to use callback functions increase count and decrease count. And I'm just going to step us through increase count because decrease count works exactly the same. And so I already have the code set up over here. So a quick orientation. Our class app is our parent component, and then it has its counter, which the state of that is initially set to 0. Makes sense. Then we have our plus button and our minus button. These are child components, but the child components need to be able to pass up their callback function to the state to reset the count. So the way this works is our plus button child component is going to take in the count, then it's going to call the increase count function, which is going to set the state of the count. Now that seems like a lot, but I think it'll work a little bit better with our example. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up the debugger because I already have the breakpoint set. Give this just a minute to initialize the instance. Step through, step through. Okay, so we have our current count. This whole thing is our parent component. Then we have our child components, the plus button and the minus button. So what happens when I hit the plus button is it comes in here, goes under the plus button because that's the child component that I hit. From the plus button, it's going to go in to that component. As you see here, it's already set our count to 1. It's using the increase count function. So what happens is we come down in here because we ran our onClick function. From there, onClick runs increase count with plus equal 1. So again, increase count is our callback function here. This callback function is then going to be re-rendered in the parent component, which is going to update the overall state. So if I click through, it'll be done. I can come back to the parent component. What it looks like when it happens is the increase count function kind of goes to count plus equals 1. This set state plus equals 1. This is what's actually happening when the callback's happening. So again, we went into the plus button child component. It called the increase count callback function. This increase count function eventually came all the way back to here because it's going to set the state of count, which is where we re-render, and this goes from 0 to 1. As you see, we go from 0 to 1. That completes the loop that was initially described here. So basically, our parent component has a child component. It can pass props to it. Our child component in this case is the plus button. The plus button calls the increase count or the decrease count function. Its information gets called back up into the parent component to re-render the state. And that is your wrap up of how callbacks work in React. Thank you.